Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we have the Recon 1 Mini review. And the problem is I don't have any clips or anything to throw in here. I did take it to work. I did use it. I have been cutting with it, but I didn't record anything, so forgive me for that. But let's get right into it. So, the AUS 10 clip point buoy blade. Beautiful stone wash. Now, AUS 10. AUS 10 is very similar to VG10. VG10 and AUS 10 are very similar together. And I think it's good steel. I think it was a good choice, decent choice. It holds a good edge. It's very easy to sharpen, good stain resistance. And it's plenty tough, especially for, for this and for what you're going to be able to do with this. So it's also kind of similar to like N690, 154 CM, it's in that ballpark of steels. So good steel. Now, going deeper into the blade, it is a clip point buoy blade, which, clip point buoys were originally made as like a fighting knife, utility knife. I don't want to say utility, but fighting knife that you could do anything with. You could skin animals with it, you could do work with it, just an all-around good knife. But, originally the buoy was made as a fighting knife. Now, great blade shape. Great blade shape. It works very well, and especially when they're designed like this, where the tip doesn't raise up real high. The tip goes nice and down, so you can do good utility cuts. You can drill holes really good. You can get good amount of slicing on it, and if you do need to skin with it or anything, you have plenty of belly. Then you have a short little bit of, because remember, this is a very short blade, but you got a little bit of flat, so you can get away with some push cuts. Let's get into the action, and then we'll get into the ergos, and we'll talk about the cutting and everything with it. So the action, it is a triad lock. Ooh, forgive me, I almost called it a back lock. It's a triad lock. So if you don't know what the triad lock is, it's the same idea as the back lock, except for a lot stronger. Why is it a lot stronger? It's a lot stronger because of this stop pin right here. So this makes it one of, if not the strongest locking mechanism on a knife, because this stop pin is, well, one, it's nice and beefy, but when you bring this around, right, you're going to see it lock up on the stop pin. Then you're going to watch this back lock, which is a spring, push down behind the stop pin. Now what happens is that this is putting pressure behind the stop pin, stopping. Let me see if we can't get it a little clearer. You see that groove right there? So the back lock drops down into that groove against the stop pin. So it actually has 3 points of contact. Now over time, the strength from the back lock being like a spring, it's constantly pushing down. So it's actually just getting stronger and stronger. Like even when you're putting force, it's constantly putting force back against the lock. So it's incredibly strong, like incredibly strong. So, and that was invented by Andrew Demko. Also the maker of the shark lock, like the 80-20. We'll pull up that here in just a second. So the lock is incredibly strong. So what you have here is you have the spring, right, that's giving you tension, pulling you back right here. It's pulling you back. You see how it like wants to slap shut. So, but once you get past that tension about right there, it stops. Now from here to open, it's nice and smooth. So once you get past there, nice and smooth, and then here to open, it feels like it just snaps in, like it just locks in, which is very satisfying to me. I really like that feeling. I love the feeling of a nice, strong lock snapping into place. So that's awesome. Now, you can slap it shut, but it does take some force. So what I like to do is I put my finger right there, hit that back lock, let it drop, slap my finger, and then I either take it around like this and use my thumb to shut it, or I'll just slap it shut. I can reverse flick it, but it's tougher than a knife with a detent, because you got to overcome it right here and then continue pushing. So, it is more of a slow roll kind of action, or a thumb drag type of action, whatever you want to call it. But with enough oomph, you can open it with a thumb flick or a reverse flick, however you want to look at it. Now, the ergos. Oh yeah, the button. Good tension on it. You see how much it lifts up. Once you get that thing out of the groove, you can slap it forward. Anyways, the ergos. So this is the mini, so it's smaller, right? But I can get, I got a full grip. I do got a full grip, but I do feel sometimes like I'm kind of fighting right here to get a full grip, because it's kind of like a 3.5 finger knife, but I can cram this finger up top here and get this other finger on there. So I can make 4 fingers get on it. It's a lot of times I feel myself kind of pushing off, just depending on how I'm holding it. Now, I also have this little spot right there under the blade where I can grip it like this. And in that case, it's pretty comfortable. Pretty comfortable in pinch grips. Reverse grip, not so comfortable, but at least the blade is kind of canting towards me. So if I am going to get behind a rope and cut it, the blade's not angled this way where the rope will slip up and off of it. It's angled this way where the rope will get stuck right there for me to snap it. So that's awesome. Now, the cutting with it. So, pushing it through materials. Now, this thing's pretty thin, okay? So, I do feel the, I guess I don't really. I feel the clip a little bit, just in certain grips, but in other grips I don't. So, I'm not even going to mention that. But pushing it through materials, it is thin. So, it's not the most comfortable knife, right, when pushing it through materials, but it's also not bad. It's, it's just like, right, it's, it's not the most comfortable, and it's also not the worst. It's just, it's a knife and it works. So no problem with that. The handles are plastic though, or FRN, whatever. I can squeeze them. It does have a liner back there, but it's only like this far. So from here to here is all plastic. And then this, where the screws land, basically is a liner on each side, if you can see that. Now, pushing it through materials, though, it is a little thick. It's not horrible, but it's not the sliciest of edges. But what you get here is a relatively tall flat grind. So since it's relatively tall, you're getting a decent amount of angle and height together. So even though it's not the thinnest behind the edge, it still passes through materials pretty good. And it is a harder use knife. It's not, and it is at the same time. It's kind of weird. It's in a weird zone because it's got a hard use lock on it. It is a hard use knife, it's big brother, but it's a little mini version of it. So you feel okay with it having a little bit more of a harder use grind on it, which I think it's like 22 thousandths behind the edge. And the blade stock isn't crazy thick. And since it is relatively tall, the geometry isn't bad. The tip is strong, yet acute enough for, utility cuts. But I didn't really have an issue slicing with it. I did use it quite a bit after I got done cleaning it off. I did hone it, and I'll tell you what, it honed back real good. It's sharper than it was when I started using it. Maybe it just needed a good honing and stropping, but holy cow, it got very sticky after honing and stropping it back. Now, utility cuts are just fine. It's, it's got a nice strong tip, so you're not going to really worry about chipping it or anything like that, but it still works relatively good. And you have this rounded area right here that it's slippery, so it can slip, but as long as you got a good grip with this hand, you can get enough leverage down into it and do pull cuts. You can get it from the side, and it works just fine. So utility cuts are good, and like I said, you do have, basically a blade shape that's good for everything. A jack of all trades blade shape. And, if I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest clip point buoy fan for folders. However, this is like the kind I do like. You know, I like the kind that don't take the point and make it a trailing point and go up. I like the kind that go down right at, you know, the object I'm pointing at. So that's all right. I usually would like it a little tiny bit lower, but it's okay. It's all right. Now, getting to the clip. Let's just pull out this thing right here. So the clip, it works great. The cold steel clips work fine. The biggest problem with them people have, I think, is that they are so low and they leave so much hanging out of the pocket. Now that's also in return going to give you something to grab onto and pull. I gotta hit the camera at least once, you guys know that. So it gives you something to grab onto when you're pulling it out of your pocket. And they do have the lanyard hole, which sits right there. So if you do like lanyards, this might be the size of a knife that you might want a lanyard on, if you like lanyards. But the clip works just fine. It's just not the deepest carry, but it's also, like I said, it gives you something to grab onto, and it is reversible. So I think you have to use a different clip though. I think they send a different clip with it, so because it's angled. And it wouldn't work otherwise. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they send you 2 clips, one to put on this side or a left-handed clip. Anyways, now getting into just a couple other things before I get into the bad. Looking back at the blade, right? The stonewash is beautiful. This is going to hide a lot of scratches, which I do like. And if you look at the choil there, now with some knives, I would complain about a choil like this. And there's a reason why I'm not going to, and I'll explain it. So you see the plunge grind. It starts here and it ends right there. So it's right next to the edge, right? Now, they could have just taken the plunge grind and dropped it straight down like a Spyderco. Let me grab a Spyderco so I can show you. I know I have one right here somewhere. Here we go. So if you look at Spyderco's plunge grind, it just goes from the thickest point straight down to the edge. So you don't really need a choil, right? Because you just sharpen all the way up to the plunge grind and there's no plunge to hit. You know, it's just a flat wall right here. So you can sharpen all the way up to it without an issue. Some people like to put a little sharpening notch there, and it's very easy to do. Well, it's kind of the same thing here. You can just take your little diamond rod and just, you know, every time, like after you sharpen it, say, you know, if you laid the edge back or if you sharpened it twice, you know, and now you're hitting the plunge grind, you just take your diamond file and put it right against there and file another little notch just like that. And when it's closed, it doesn't hit there. So there is a little stop pin inside there. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but it hits like right here. It doesn't hit in the plunge. So it hits like somewhere right around there. So it's not a big deal. So you can easily do that. So I'm not going to complain about that because they did pretty much leave it open. But however, I do want to see more companies pay attention to the plunge grinds and their choils. Not necessarily the choil, but the plunge grind. That's the most important part. Now, getting into some bad things. Let's talk about some bad things. Not a lot, but I do have a couple. Okay, so one, you got this little opening right here, which the same as, let's pull out the Demco now, because I know you guys are waiting for the Demco to come out. The Demco AD 20.5 does the same thing. You got it right there. If you look at right here, bam, you see how it's got that little groove right there. And these are almost the same size. I'm not going to pull out a bunch of size comparisons, but just to give you a good idea of how big both of them are. If you know the size of this, then you know the size of this now and vice versa. The Demco is a tiny, tiny bit longer. But you know what? I already pulled out the Spyderco, so I'll just pull it right back out and just show it to you really quick. There's the size comparison. You can see it is a small knife. It's not a big knife at all. But you know, that little gap right there, it's not that big of a deal, but, you know, I'd like to see it not there. Next thing, this is a hard-use knife, kind of. I know it's a small, hard-use knife, but I don't care if it's a lightweight knife. I want T8s. We have a T6 right here, T6 on that side. This is a pin for the lock bar to move back and forth on like a teeter-totter. And then they do have a bigger pivot, so, T8 pivot. But I'd rather see T8s, and even for the clip possibly, just because, it does come off, and, you know, they do have the option to switch it or to switch clips. Not that big of a deal, but I'd rather see it, especially for a tough knife. But even for a light duty knife, I want to see that. Next thing, it has a little bit of lock stick. I'm not that, you know, it's not that big of a deal to me. It's not like it's horrifying and it hurts my finger or anything. But, you know, it is a thing still. Next thing, I'd like to see a little dimple right there. I forget what the heck it's called. Every time I do a video, everybody tells me and I always forget. It's called something. The bow dent or something. The something dent. Anyways, just a little dent right there for the back lock. It makes it a little bit more comfortable, and I can't remember the name of it, so forgive me. But that would be cool. Next thing, you know, the clip is fine. I didn't have no issues with it or anything, but it's kind of ugly. It's kind of ugly. I don't like the Cold Steel sign on it. I don't like the Cold Steel logo. There's already Cold Steel written on the knife. Why do you have to have it on the clip as well? I don't personally like that. So I'd rather just have a better clip, better look. You know, this is a work knife. So, you know, I don't care really too much about what the clip looks like. And I guess the clip's fine, but I'd rather take Cold Steel off of it. Now, all in all, it's a cool knife. It's a cool work knife. I'm not going to buy one, you know, but I could see why people would want a smaller version of their Recon 1 because the Recon 1 is a beast of a knife. So it's cool that they did it. And, you know, it's definitely a useful tool. It is definitely a tool. And that's the beauty of Cold Steels. And that's where I appreciate them. I appreciate them as a tool. If you guys follow me or know anything about me, you know I've done construction my whole life. I'm not currently working construction, but I grew up in a construction family. You know, construction is part of everything I know. Right. So I really appreciate tools and work and, you know, having a good tool in your pocket and knives being made for that reason. And I really appreciate that. So that's what I appreciate about Cold Steels is the tool aspect of them. So there you guys go. I love you guys and thanks for watching. Peace.